Tonight, I'm honored and I am humbled to present the Spirit of Queens Award. Every year, this vibrant award is given to an outstanding artist who represents the community, someone who plays a crucial role in the development of the next generation of filmmakers. A renegade, if you will, a pioneer, someone whose work inspires and challenges audiences to look at the world in a unique way. I have to say, my assistant kept on saying, Cynthia, his name is Leon. And I kept on saying, no, it's Leon. And for those of us who speak Spanish here, we know that he's a leon. How many people know what a leon is? It's a lion. And that's the kind of filmmaker that he is. He's Havana-born director Leon Ichaso. He came from a family of well-known artists, journalists, and writers. His father, Justo, was one of Cuba's most respected poets and a pioneer in the broadcast TV and radio. And his mother, Antonia, had a radio magazine show in the 1940s. Imagine that. Like many Cuban families living in exile, Leon's experience has colored his work and shaped him as one of today's most powerful storytellers. He's been called the poet of Latin New York, a director specializing in gritty urban realism. His work has shown audiences diverse Latino voices, and we know they are well beyond mainstream stereotypes. He made his first mark with a film in 1979 with an independently made Spanish language feature called El Super, based on a work that was an off-Broadway play about an immigrant living in New York City. 6 years later, he made the highly acclaimed film Crossover Dreams, a hard-hitting look at a different but mixed Latino U.S. communities, life in el barrio, and the potent drive of salsa music. Leon, or Leon as I would say, is no stranger to the Hollywood scene as well. He's directed everything from big action series on TV like Miami Vice, The Crime Story, The Equalizer, to TV movies, A Kiss to Die For, Zoo Man, and The Execution of Justice. In 1994, Leon directed Wesley Snipes' Sugar Hill, a character study that looked at violent crime and drama in New York City in the drug industry. He also has tackled biographies including Ali, an American Hero, and Hendrix. My personal favorite film that he has directed and written was the highly acclaimed biographical feature Piñero. How many of you have seen Piñero in the audience? It's an amazing film and you have to see this. It is about the life of a Puerto Rican poet, playwright, and actor. Miguel Piñero was played by Benjamin Bratt. And in 2006, he made a film called El Cantante, starring Mark Anthony and Jennifer Lopez, about the life and times of Hector Lavoe, a popular Puerto Rican salsa star who died of AIDS at 46 years old. Tomorrow night, you'll have the pleasure of seeing his award-winning film, Azúcar Amarga, or Bitter Sugar, a Spanish-language film about the disillusioned Cuban communist. Leon's work speaks for itself. Join me in welcoming Leon to the stage to accept the Spirit of Queens Award. I am humbled that you could be here this evening with us. Please come up.
We gave this, Leon, we made this especially just for him. It's the Queens World Film Festival Spirit of Queens honoree for his artistry, his integrity, and his humanity.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, oh my God, everything has been said. I don't know what to say. I mean, I feel bad that I'm not from Queens. And but I do remember when I came to this country, and I used to work at hotels in Miami Beach, and I was a little kid. And part of the fun of working at a hotel in Miami Beach is like to pick up the girls from Queens. And I remember that, where are you from? Forest Hills. Oh wow. I imagine a forest and a hill. But I do have my connection with Queens. I'm a New Yorker. I do come here for the best Colombian, Argentinian, for tea sandwiches, for many things. I have friends here, and see, I'm trying to like say my Queens validate the Queens in me. But anyway, I'm very glad. The excitement in this festival is really incredible. Everybody, Don, Keitha, the commissioner, all the volunteers that are wonderful, the museum, what Carl has done with it. I feel really excited and impressed, and I wish I could move to Queens. I could be in the festival every day. I could just start. I'll start tonight. Good feelings to all the filmmakers that are here. Please don't lose the hope. It's a hard road making movies. It's worth it. It is festivals like this that in that journey, we can take a rest. We can show what we do. We can meet each other, and thank God they exist. And thank God for the Queens World Festival. I honestly, if I try to say any more, I'll just say the wrong thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lopez, and congratulations to you
Great montage. Beautiful
Okay.
work. So, congratulations again, Leon, and thank you, Commissioner Lopez. Please remember that we're screening Bitter Sugar tomorrow night. It's a 35mm print. It's Leon's print. It'll be right here, followed by a Q&A with Leon and MOMI's chief curator, David Schwartz. Pass the word around.
So tomorrow night's screening of Bitter Sugar is also a tribute to IndieCollect. Not only for discovering the forgotten negative of bitter sugar, but for advocating for the conservation of the entire field of independent cinema across all genres, fiction, non-fiction, hybrid, and experimental works. In the largest sense, IndieCollect's mission is to ensure that when the history of motion pictures is written at the end of this century, the work of independent filmmakers will not have been eclipsed.
Wow, well, such a passionate and wonderful and rich film. It's amazing to think that it might have been, that might have been lost.
Yeah, well, it's not. There's a DVD, of course.
There's a DVD.
I'm going to be selling some DVDs.
Oh, okay. Could you tell us, well, first of all, so is this, just to clear it up, is this actually based on true story? And what made you decide to do this film? You made a number of films about being in America, and then what made you decide to finally make a film about what's happening in Cuba?
I'm not like I've never been, a Cuban patriot of any kind. I escaped the Cuban world through the '60s. I was here, when the '60s happened, and that helped me, I think, escape that whole ghetto protocol in life. But when this was happening was at the time when Cuba had become once again the flesh market, and people from my business were showing up in Havana. The ugly Americans were back.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson,
right.
This one and that one, drunk with 5 women, and it really upset me. And it was, the amount of the prostitution was unbelievable. And my neighbor in Los Angeles brought me a New York Times that said, "Here's your next movie," and it was an article called "Socialism or Death," about the rock and roll kids that had injected themselves with AIDS-infected blood. And I said, oh my God, I cannot do a monster movie, a ghoulish movie, Dracula. But I started thinking, and I said, well, my father's own disillusionment with the revolution. My father was with the revolution and benefited from it and loved it and was a dreamer. My mother was totally crushed by it. They got divorced.
Your father stayed.
My father stayed, yeah. And that's the character, that it's the pianist, I think, of the disillusioned man. And I said, I got to do something. I got to do something because I've witnessed my dad's kind of, how the whole thing brought him down, how he abandoned me. I mean, my father, I remember when I was 14 and he sat me at the airport, at the counter of the airline, and he said, look at me very well, because you're never going to see me again. Now, you're 14 years old. You don't say that to a kid 14 years old unless you want him to turn into a alcoholic, drug addict, or whatever, because that'll kick back in. It didn't happen to me. Worse. But he believed in that, and he stayed until they got kicked out, until this, he's a very known Cuban poet, until his poetry got too personal. They told him, you can't write like this anymore. And he came here. I had to do something. I felt that it was a time that I could afford making a movie that had some political elements. I look at it today and it's like, oh my God, you didn't let on for a second. It was just one indictment after another. But, I did it and I felt very, very happy that I had done something, that I just didn't, it wasn't one of those that talk and talk and talk. I had made my little contribution to this. The movie played, the movie exposed a situation that was happening. There was nothing made up. There was nothing that it was invented. The film played all over the world. The film was reviewed, even in countries that were very much in favor with Cuba, like Venezuela. I remember the main critic of Venezuela. I remember that they said to me, he's like the Vincent Canby of Caracas. And he's a juror at the Havana Film Festival, so get ready to be destroyed. And he wrote a piece called Requiem for a Dream, like a movie. And it says you can't blame Ichazo if things didn't work out. And he was a very positive. So things went well. I mean, I toured with the movie all over the world. Nothing ever happened to me. No one came forward. And so, because this was happening, it was not a right-wing fabrication.
Right. How did you just talk a bit about how you got the film made? Because you had, made real independent films and were working a bit within the Hollywood system, and this feels like a really, independent film. So how did you get it done?
Well, this one, you have your group of people that you nourish and work with and give jobs, and then you say, hey, now we're gonna do one
for me.
And you get excellent friends. I mean, the DP, Claudio Shea, I have worked with in Crossover Dreams and many other movies, and he was definitely ready for this one. And everybody was kind of like, chipped in a little bit.
Yeah, and could you talk about the casting? The lead actors, of course, terrific and attractive and great. These are like compelling characters and performances. All the other characters, the father is great. Could you talk about just putting your cast together?
Yeah, the father had just left Cuba. He was a very known actor. And he had this was his first job outside of Cuba. He was very scared, and that scene that he spit on Fidel Castro, I said to him, are you sure you want to do this? and he said to me, I'm ready to do this. So, I met them all in Miami. A lot of them had just arrived. There was something that was very curious that happened in Santo Domingo, because we shot in Santo Domingo as well. That I met these guys that were going to build a raft. That was their only job in the movie. They were going to build the raft. But then I realized that these guys, these Cubans, who were in Santo Domingo because they were rafters. They had just gotten there, these Cubans. I needed a scene where, like, the secret police had to be tough on Bobby, the rock and roller, and I said, hey, And I realized that all these people were like born actors. Because in Cuba is a place where you act all the time. To buy a Bible, this, to barter, to exchange. And a lot of those actors were like real people who had never been in front of a camera. The girl had just done a movie with James Woods and Sylvester Stallone. And like that, I started assembling and investigating. I got a documentary that was made from by a Boston University, investigating this AIDS camps. So I got a hold of that documentary. And I like the scene at the end when they're on the waterfall. That was right on the documentary, with the same song, with the same little American flag.
It's such a strong image.
And so a lot of it was kind of things that I were collecting, and then the actors themselves would tell me, hey, do you know, and they would contribute to their own little stories. I mean, I look at the movie now, today, and I find it a little fashioned sometimes, but that's me.
I think, I would like you to talk about how you work as a director, like the film, you talk about it being very political, and it does have a strong viewpoint throughout, but it's very poetic in the style and lyrical. And it feels like a piece of music, the way it flows. Could you talk about how you achieve that, or how you your approach to it?
Well, I wanted it to be a love story as much as possible. I like music myself. I think that if I wouldn't have made films, I would have wanted to be a musician more than anything. So music is always, a big part of my films. In this one, it was different because something happened that is kind of interesting. Maybe it's not your question, but I stole a song from a Cuban guy in Cuba. His name is Carlos Varela, and he's like the Cuban Bob Dylan. And it's the song that plays when they're on the waterfall. And somebody had guaranteed that Carlos in Cuba had signed the release. But of course, you can never believe that. And I knew that Carlos was never going to come to this country because his whole gig is being in Cuba protesting against Castro with his music. He was never going to come here. The movie's finished, the movie's sold, the movie's about to be released, and a friend of mine says, guess who was invited by Paul Simon?
Oh no.
Carlos Varela. So he was in New York, where his guitar was stolen. Paul Simon gave him another one. He came to Miami, and in Miami someone told me, and he's on his way to LA, where I live. And I said, oh my God. I mean, if this guy says no, that means the movie has to be stopped, the release has to be stopped. I'm in big trouble with distributors. So I invited him to my house for a screening. I managed to contact him and connect with him. He came in with a little posse of people, lefties, and American lefties. And there's a lot of you. And, he was really nice. Leather pants, the bandana, asking for a beer. I started the video, and I left him alone in the living room. And I was like hiding behind the kitchen to see if I could see his face, to see if I could see a reaction, And I'm imagining the worst. And the movie ended, and he sat there. He didn't move. He was like a statue. I said, oh God, that doesn't sound very good. And I turned on the lights, and I stood in front of him. And he got up and gave me the biggest hug in the world.
Great.
No problem with Carlos. And we have become friendly. But music, I mean, I wish that I could have gotten more of the music that was happening in Havana at the time, but I didn't. And the whole idea of being kind of like, I say, poetic, it was something that you had to kind of like, maneuver in, so it wouldn't be just categorized as a, anti-Castro.
But do you think, and I just want to ask one thing, then open it up to the audience, but, I mean, do you think that there was any way that you paid a price for being like so, with like you joked about American lefties here, but paying a price for being like so strongly anti-Castro.
Oh yeah, I paid a price. This was the time when Robert Redford and Sidney Pollack and everybody was very much pro Francis Ford Coppola, Ted Turner. Everybody was going fishing with Castro, so. They weren't approving of that. At the same time, the films they were making, like Havana and things like that, were garbage.
Yeah. Okay.
So that they were in a little bit of a quandary.
Yeah.
There was some quality to this. The fact that it was done in black and white, it immediately said this guy is not after the money, because black and white is deemed the most anti-commercial thing in life.
Right.
Make it a black and white movie trying to be a model with leprosy. It didn't work.
Did you partly do that in order to interweave the archival footage? Was that part of why you did it in black and white, or you just wanted that look?
Havana is a monochromatic city.
Mm-hmm.
There's no color. It's grays and beiges, and it lost all its color. It's destroyed. San Domingo, I had done a lot of commercials in San Domingo, and whenever I'd be working there, I would look at places that looked just like Cuba, and I started kind of storing them in case that one day I would do something I didn't know I would.
Yeah.
And so it's shooting in Cuba 4 days and shooting the rest of the movie in San Domingo. It made it so even looking.
Yeah.
That you at times didn't know
where you were. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we have time for some questions. So, do you see our own country going
Going in that direction.
Us?
The United States going in which direction?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think people here are different. No.
I think capitalism is pretty healthy.
Yeah, capitalism is pretty solid here.
Okay, can you talk about why you chose this aspect ratio to work in?
I don't even remember. I was under the impression that it's a 185 and that it was projected here, boxed up. But it's been a while. Yeah, it's something. What you're saying, and I don't mean to interrupt, but people don't believe it sometimes. But I think one of Castro's biggest perversions has been to watch his country crumble. To watch that beautiful, stunning city.
Do you think that Cuba will go back to the way it was once we open up our relationship with you?
I don't think the way it was. There's some kind of a notion of the way it was with the mafia and the casinos. It was as much as a country that, as Monaco, that has casinos and has things that could be deemed bad. Cuba was never like a place where you went to get laid or to this or that. It was a beautiful place. The Cuban peso was at the same level as the dollar. It was a country that had coffee, tobacco, tourist industry. We didn't depend on anybody. We didn't have to become anybody's mistress, like he did with Russia, like he's doing right now, like he did with Venezuela, like he's going to try to do now with Obama. I think that it's going to be worse.
It's going to be worse.
Yes, I think that it's going to be worse. I think it's going to be very sad, and I think that the ones that are not going to get any of it are the Cubans there. Those are the ones that I think are going to remain waiters and taxi drivers and everything, make a little more money. They're going to be able to buy a computer, but there's going to be Costco's and Home Depot's and Starbucks in every corner. I'm going to go back as a Cuban and I'm going to be treated like a German. It's going to be bad.
But you don't feel that opening up the foreign exchange infrastructure will trickle down to the rest of the people?
I hope so, because they are the ones that have suffered the most. And that's why I hope that there's some kind of opening and that they are like rewarded for the 55 years of being disconnected.
Okay, right over. Thank you. Over here.
Just follow through. I thought that was so interesting when you said that it's perversion of Castro seeing the country, Havana.
Well, Castro is a Spaniard. He's a Spaniard. His father is from the Spaniard, and they hate Cubans. Castro's hate for Cubans is known. That's why Cubans have mutated into things that weren't before. That's why by preventing to have books or papers or internet, he creates this little sort of monster in a way, and that's sadder than letting the city fall apart.
Can you please tell us about your creative process of how you start? You said you looked at something. It's amazing how you have the actual archival footage and the new stuff. So it's, I know you're a writer, and I love your work. So I don't know how do you start with a story?
Since she wants to hear more about your creative process.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, no, at the beginning it was all research. And then I, after doing a lot of, kind of putting it together, the rock and roll kids, the prostitutes, the professionals leaving their jobs to become waiters, pianists, whatever. I thought, okay, I have these elements here. Now I need a love story, and like that I started kind of, putting it together. I wrote a synopsis in an hour, and
wow.
I wrote I called a friend of mine and I said, if I put 50 grand, will you put another 50? And he said, yeah.
Wow.
And we were on, and the movie cost. We got out of Santo Domingo after spending $200,000,
wow.
which is not very much.
That's great.
Okay, right over here.
Yes, I just want to ask you a bit about the ambiguous sort of ending between the main character's choice between staying in Cuba versus leaving with Yolanda. And I wanted to, I guess, get your idea of whether you think he made the proper choice or whether there's no right answer to that kind of question.
I didn't make the proper choice. There's a gentleman there that produced El Super and Crossover Dreams who said to me, if you would have taken that ending out, it would have been a better movie. It would have been accepted and liked more. If you just hear Gustavo listening to the Pack of Lies, and somehow it just go to black. But I really, the truth is that I really wanted somebody to shoot him. I can't lie. I said, there's got to be someone crazy enough to pick up a gun and do it. And I'm going to try to have that happen. And I sent 500 cassettes to Cuba, hoping, the people are too tired. They're too busy trying to buy a toilet paper, a light bulb, whatever. Nobody's going to risk it. They haven't. The only recorded protest in film or video, it is in the movie. There's only been one. So how could anybody pick up a gun? It was, if I would have thought about it, I would have listened to him, I would have had perhaps less crazy of an ending.
I love the ending. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Love it.
But that was the idea, that somebody would just be inspired and say, no more, no more.
Tragedy, yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to know, how were you able to film inside Cuba? I would imagine you did it clandestinely.
No, I'll tell you. We went there and said that we were doing a documentary on Caribbean architecture. They knew we weren't. They didn't care. As long as you pay them, you walk out of you go to the airport with a palm tree over your shoulder. They don't care.
Were you there?
No, I was in Santo Domingo, but we went to Cuba twice. Because the first time the cameraman was so nervous that he couldn't. So another more laid-back cameraman, friend of his, went back for a second trip, but they didn't have a problem with us. They knew that there was nothing about architecture. They didn't care.
Did you tell them where to go with streets, or did they just do it random?
No, I knew exactly, and I knew that bus that you see turning in Havana, the same buses they had in Santo Domingo. When she comes through the window, when you see the seawall of the Malecón, and you see a little couple there, we had the long shots of that, and then in Santo Domingo we built a seawall that was like 25 feet long, and we did things like that. There was a plan. Somebody, the art director, came back with Lenin high school shirts and diplomas and things. So there was, and they gave it all to us. They couldn't care. Oh my God, I haven't been back. My last time there, 1963.
Wow.
That's what I thought. I was wondering, with the change from Fidel to Raul, if you have over the years, if you have noticed a change.
Oh, I've noticed
Because
everything.
obviously it must have changed
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity of watching not only this film, but also El Cantante as well as Piñero. And one thing that I noticed in all three films is the Dante Inferno moments. I mean, and I wanted to find out where you get that inspiration. I mean, the real dark moments within all three films that I noticed, it's like a pattern. And I found them very interesting because it kind of drags you into the depths of hell, if you want to, for lack of a better term.
Right. Well, I guess that each film deserved that and had to have that. I mean, El Cantante has, a man is ruled by a demon and it's got to have that hell. Piñero is a man who is a demon himself. And here you had the rock and rollers, I guess, and that may be your moment of that they're buying the ticket to go there. I don't know, I like darkness. You know, I can't deny it.
Wow, okay, we're going to end on that